Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the stories. Wait 3 seconds. I should have known something was wrong the moment I saw the parking lot. Half the street lights were out, casting everything in a patchwork of yellow light and deep shadows, but there were still cars scattered throughout the lot. Not many, maybe 20 or 30 vehicles, but enough to make me pause at the entrance. Westfield Commons had been abandoned for 3 years. At least that's what everyone said. The city had condemned it after the roof collapsed in the old Sears wing, and supposedly all the stores had closed down. But Marcus swore he'd seen lights on inside when he drove past last week, and the bet was simple enough. Spend one night inside, document it with photos, and collect $200 from our little group. $200 was $200, especially for a freelance photographer scraping by on wedding gigs and senior portraits. The main entrance doors were chained shut, but the chains were loose enough that I could squeeze through sideways. The metal was cold against my back as I slipped inside, my camera bag catching briefly before I made it through. The first thing that hit me was the smell, not the musty, stale air I'd expected from an abandoned building, but something else entirely. Coffee, fresh coffee, mixed with the artificial sweetness of mall pretzels and that distinctive scent of new clothing. It was exactly how the mall had smelled 3 years ago, when it was still operational. My footsteps echoed as I walked deeper into the main concourse. The skylights above were grimy and cracked, letting in just enough moonlight to see by, but it wasn't enough to explain what I was looking at. The storefronts still had their signs: GameStop, Bath and Body Works, Hot Topic, all the usual suspects. But more than that, they were lit, not brightly, but with the same dim security lighting you'd see in any mall after hours. Display windows showed off merchandise, and I could swear I saw price tags and sale banners that looked fresh. I pulled out my camera and took a few shots, the flash momentarily blinding me in the darkness. When my vision cleared, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. There were no store closing signs, no empty shelves or bare walls. If anything, the stores looked ready. Like they were just waiting for morning to arrive so they could open their gates and welcome customers. I walked toward the old Spencer's, remembering how I used to browse their ridiculous t-shirts and novelty items in high school. The metal security gate was down, but through the gaps I could see the familiar chaos of merchandise. Band posters, lava lamps, inappropriate coffee mugs, everything exactly where it should be. A sound made me freeze. Footsteps soft and measured coming from somewhere deeper in the mall. I held my breath and listened, but they faded away, leaving me with just the ambient hum of something. Electricity, maybe, but that was impossible. The power had been cut years ago. I decided to follow the sound, walking past the old fountain that had been drained but somehow still smelled like chlorine and pennies. The footsteps had come from the direction of the food court, so I headed that way, my camera ready. The food court was a revelation of wrongness. Every restaurant was there: Panda Express, Subway, that local pizza place that had closed even before the mall died, and they all had their menu boards lit up, displaying prices and daily specials. The tables and chairs were arranged perfectly, recently cleaned, with no dust or debris anywhere. But it was the smells that really got to me. Underneath that fresh coffee aroma was something else. Something that reminded me of meat left too long in the sun, sweet and cloying and wrong. I took more pictures, the flash revealing details that the dim lighting had hidden. The daily specials boards showed dates from 3 years ago, the exact week the mall had supposedly closed, but the food looked fresh. Behind the Panda Express counter, I could see steam rising from the warming trays. "Can I help you?" I spun around so fast I nearly dropped my camera. A woman stood behind the counter at Auntie Anne's Pretzels, wearing the familiar brown uniform and visor. She was maybe 40, with graying hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she was smiling at me like it was perfectly normal to be working in an abandoned mall at midnight. Sorry, I thought this place was closed," I managed. Her smile never wavered. "Oh, we're always open. Would you like to try our cinnamon sugar pretzel? It's fresh from the oven." I could smell it now, that warm, sweet scent of baked dough and cinnamon. My stomach growled despite my confusion. I hadn't eaten since lunch, and the pretzel did smell incredible. "How long have you been working here?" I asked. 3 years, 4 months, and 16 days, she replied without hesitation. Time flies when you love what you do. That was exactly how long the mall had been closed. "Are there other people working tonight?" "Of course, we're a full-service shopping center. Marcus is working at GameStop, Sarah's covering Bath and Body Works, and Tom just finished his shift at Radio Shack." She paused, tilting her head slightly. "You should visit them. They love meeting new customers." The way she said customers made something cold settle in my stomach. I backed away from the counter, mumbling an excuse about not being hungry, and hurried toward the main concourse. But I couldn't resist checking GameStop. Marcus was a common name, but the coincidence bothered me. The same Marcus who dared me to spend the night here. The security gate at GameStop was partially raised, just enough for someone to duck under. I could see movement inside, someone organizing games on the back wall. I called out a greeting, and the figure turned around. It was Marcus. My Marcus. The same guy who'd bet me $200 just 6 hours ago. But he was wearing a GameStop polo shirt, and when he saw me, his face lit up with the same eerily perfect customer service smile. "Hey there, looking for anything specific tonight? We've got a great selection of pre-owned titles, and everything's buy two get one free." "Marcus, what the hell are you doing here?" He looked confused, his smile faltering for just a moment. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" "I'm pretty good with faces, but," he shrugged apologetically. "Anyway, can I interest you in our rewards program?" I took a step closer, studying his face in the dim light. It was definitely Marcus, same scar on his chin from when he'd crashed his bike in middle school, same crooked nose from breaking it playing football. But his eyes were wrong. They were too bright, too focused, like he was looking at something just behind me instead of at me directly. "Marcus, it's me, Jake. We went to high school together. You literally dared me to come here tonight." The confusion on his face deepened, and for a moment something else flickered there. Fear, maybe, but then the customer service smile snapped back into place. "I think you have me confused with someone else, sir, but I'd be happy to help you find whatever you're looking for." I backed away from the store, my heart hammering. This was wrong. All of this was impossibly, fundamentally wrong. I needed to get out, needed to think, needed to— Jake. I turned toward the voice and saw Sarah emerging from Bath and Body Works. Sarah Chen, who'd been Marcus's girlfriend since junior year. She was wearing the store's signature black apron and carrying a basket of small bottles. "Sarah, thank God, what's going on here? Why is Marcus acting so weird?" She tilted her head, her expression mirroring Marcus's earlier confusion. "I'm sorry, I don't think we've met. Are you looking for something specific? We have a wonderful selection of seasonal scents." The same bright, empty eyes, the same too perfect smile. I ran. My footsteps echoed through the concourse as I sprinted toward the main entrance, but somehow I took a wrong turn and ended up in a wing I didn't recognize. The stores here were different, older, with names I half remembered from childhood trips to other malls. KB Toys, Walden Books, a Gadzooks that I was pretty sure had gone out of business in the early 2000s. But they were all open, all staffed, all perfectly maintained. I ducked into an alcove near the old photo studio and tried to catch my breath. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the pictures on my camera, looking for some proof that I wasn't losing my mind. The photos were all there, but they were wrong. The timestamps were correct, but the images showed something different than what I remembered taking. Instead of empty, abandoned storefronts, they showed a thriving mall. Customers browsing in the stores, families walking through the concourse, teenagers hanging out by the fountain. And in every single photo, there were people looking directly at the camera, looking directly at me. Their faces were too bright, too focused, with those same wrong eyes I'd seen on Marcus and Sarah. I deleted the photos and took new ones, but the same thing happened. The camera was showing me a mall full of life, while my eyes saw the dim, eerie emptiness I'd been walking through. "Excuse me, sir." I looked up to find a security guard standing a few feet away. He was older, maybe 60, with a gray mustache and the kind of patient expression that suggested he'd dealt with plenty of confused mall visitors over the years. "I'm sorry, but the mall is closed to customers right now. You'll need to come with me." "Closed, but all the stores are open. There are people working." He nodded sympathetically. "I understand the confusion, sir, but we're between operating hours right now. The staff is just doing some restocking and maintenance. You'll need to leave." He gestured toward a corridor I hadn't noticed before, one that seemed to lead toward an exit, but something about his tone made me hesitate. "What happens if I don't leave?" His smile never changed, but something shifted behind his eyes. "Well, sir, then you become part of our overnight crew. We're always looking for dedicated employees." I thought about Marcus arranging games on a back wall, his face bright and empty. Sarah organizing bottles of lotion with the same vacant enthusiasm. How long had they been here? Had they ever actually left? "What kind of work?" I asked. "Whatever needs doing, sir. We take care of our employees here. Full benefits, job security, and you never have to worry about the outside world again." The way he said "never" made my skin crawl. I started walking toward the corridor he'd indicated, but slowly, my mind racing. The exit had to be real. He wouldn't have suggested it otherwise, but I needed to understand what was happening here. "How long have you worked here?" I asked. "Oh, it feels like forever," he replied, falling into step beside me. "Time works differently when you love your job." The corridor was longer than it should have been, stretching ahead of us with no visible end. The walls were lined with employee photos, Employee of the Month displays dating back decades. But as we walked, I started recognizing faces. Not just Marcus and Sarah, but other people from town. People who'd supposedly moved away or transferred schools or just disappeared. These people, I said, pointing at the photos, they all work here. Oh yes, we have a wonderful team, very dedicated, very permanent. That last word hung in the air like a threat. The corridor finally ended at a door marked exit, but when the security guard reached for the handle, I grabbed his wrist. Wait, what happens to the people who leave? He looked down at my hand on his wrist, and his customer service mask finally slipped. His face went blank, then twisted into something hungry and cold. Nobody leaves, he said. I yanked my hand back and shoved past him, grabbing the door handle myself. It turned and cool night air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and freedom. I stumbled outside into the parking lot, gasping like I'd been underwater. The security guard didn't follow me. When I looked back, the door had already closed, and I could hear the sound of locks engaging. I ran to my car and drove home, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I didn't stop until I was in my apartment with every light on and the door double locked. The next morning, I called Marcus's phone. It went straight to voicemail. I tried Sarah, then drove to their apartment complex. The manager told me they'd moved out 3 years ago, right around the time the mall closed, and hadn't left a forwarding address. I searched online for any mention of Westfield Commons, but found nothing recent. According to every official record, it had been demolished 6 months ago. The lot was supposed to be empty, ready for redevelopment, but I knew what I'd seen. That afternoon, I drove back to the mall. In daylight, it looked exactly like it should, a demolished lot with nothing but broken concrete and weeds. But there were tire tracks in the dirt, and when I walked to where the main entrance had been, I found something that made my blood freeze. Scattered in the weeds were employee name tags, dozens of them. Marcus Chen GameStop, Sarah Williams Bath and Body Works, and dozens of others, names I recognized from high school, from around town, from missing person reports I'd seen over the years. At the bottom of the pile was a name tag that hadn't been there before, Jake Morrison Photography Studio. I threw it as far as I could and ran back to my car. That was 6 months ago. I've tried to forget about it, tried to convince myself it was all some kind of stress-induced hallucination. But every few weeks, I get a call from a number I don't recognize. When I answer, I hear the ambient sounds of a shopping mall, music, distant conversations, the echo of footsteps on tile. And sometimes, just before I hang up, I hear Marcus's voice. We're hiring Jake. The benefits are incredible. Last night, I found a job application in my mailbox. Westfield Commons is looking for a photographer to document their grand reopening. The position offers excellent pay, full benefits, and lifetime job security. I haven't filled it out yet, but I keep thinking about how empty my apartment feels, how few friends I have left in town, how little I have to keep me anchored to this world. The application is sitting on my kitchen table right now, and every time I walk past it, the paper seems a little brighter, the offer a little more appealing. Maybe Marcus was right about the benefits. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to have guaranteed work, to never worry about rent or loneliness or the crushing weight of an uncertain future. Maybe I should just fill out the application. After all, they're always hiring.